Hello, welcome to the West London Sport YouTube channel. I'm here with West London Sport's Ian McCullough and Ben Kosky, and of course former Rangers striker Kevin Gallen. Guys, seems like a little while since we spoke. Obviously, we had the long international break for a couple of weeks, and we've had a couple of games since. Real good 3-0 win over Coventry, which was followed up by a not so good 3-1 defeat to Nottingham Forest. Sort of sums up QPR season really in a way, doesn't it? I mean, one of probably the best performances of the season against Coventry, and then probably followed up with one of the worst performances of the season. You know, there's been some real good highlights this season, and there's been some not so good ones. But Kev, just touched on that Nottingham Forest game first. I know a few of us were surprised when we saw the team sheet. It wasn't too many changes. I think he only made 2 changes to the team, but I know obviously given that they played on Friday, Monday over the Easter period, I think we expected some sort of rotation because we know Mark Warburton likes to kind of keep the players fresh. But Samfield dropping into centre-back, Don Ball in midfield. I mean, do you think the kind of weird or slightly different team selection was a big factor, sort of cost them the 3 points in the end? And, you know, they didn't really get anywhere near to their best, did they, in the game?
No, it wasn't a great performance. It didn't help giving away a really poor goal just before half-time, where you go in at half-time 0-0. It's all to play for. Barbe, who's been having really good form since the turn of the year, since we went 3 at the back, just got to really clear his lines. He tried to run the ball out of play. Maybe could have been a foul given. Wasn't given, they scored. But the lineup was a little bit surprising. In hindsight, I think he should have just he had a couple of options. You put Don Ball straight in as a straight swap for Cameron, or you bring in Nicole Hammerlein at left wing back, Barbe goes centre, and Wallace goes left side centre half. But really, for me, it should have been a straight swap. Cameron out, Ball in, and kept the midfield, which was doing really well, especially against Coventry on Friday. Kept Samfield next to Johansson, because that little combination of those two have worked really well in the last few weeks. And I think maybe in hindsight, he might be thinking I made a mistake there. But it's easy me saying this when we lose in hindsight. But I do think we had to make a change because the Cameron was injured, and then to make another change, putting Samfield back there, I think it was just a bit too much, and I think he should have left them 2 in there and put Don Ball in the centre.
Just looking at Ian's face when you said Nico Hammerlein, and I was expecting some sort of facial reaction, but he kept his cool. Yeah, I suppose one positive from the game, I mean, Lyndon Dykes seems to have found a bit more confidence now. And when I watched the goal back, actually, I was thinking about what you said, 2 weeks ago when we spoke about being in between the goalposts and that being the position to be. And yet again, he picked up a really good position, didn't he, off his man, and managed to get the free header, really good cross in from Adoma, I think it was. I mean, it's pretty obvious, like you said, what he needs to keep doing, and we'll touch on the strikers in a bit. But like you said, maybe he's taking your advice.
Yeah, look, I was coached, not coached, but we were always told by, Roger Cross was like the reserve manager. He would always just say, just be in, when the ball comes in the box, be in between the posts. That's where the goals are scored. And if you keep making those runs, eventually, you know, it will come to you, and then you just got to have the technique to put it away. And it was to be fair, it was a great ball by Adoma, and it was a good finish. A finish that you'd expect him to score, but it's not that. He's made the movement off the back of the centre half. It's good movement, great ball. The delivery was great, and it's a good goal. And that really, that's now 2 goals in 2 away games for Lyndon Dykes. I think who was the one against Reading? So now he's like finding the back of the net, confidence. Even though we lost, he'll be still thinking, well, I've scored there. I only come on a sub. I've made an impact. You know, I would expect him to start the game on Saturday against Sheffield Wednesday. Yeah,
absolutely. It's definitely more encouraging. That said, we'll come back to the strikers in a bit. Like we already touched on, Ian, changing the team around, bringing in Samfield into the defence, Don Ball coming into the team. And that was obviously at the expense of Geoff Cameron, I imagine, because of, you know, he's 35 now. He's probably maybe not in a position that he can play games in quite quick succession. But I mean, do you feel like he's kind of underrated in this QPR team, Geoff Cameron? Because it seems like when he goes out, they don't do very well. I mean, there was a stat I saw on Twitter from, I think it was Hoops and Dreams, lost. Apparently, he's only been when he's been in the team, they've only lost 27% of the games he's in, which is I think the highest in the squad this season. Which is, I mean, when you watch him, I guess he doesn't really catch the eye. He kind of goes under the radar a little bit. But do you think there's something in that? Do you think they kind of miss him when he goes out?
Well, I said in previous seasons that when Cameron plays well, QPR generally tend to play well, and that was when he was playing in the centre midfield. I think he's shown that perhaps his centre midfield days are behind him. But I mean, since he's joined, he's been a steady player, good pro, and he's done a decent job. I don't think Rangers would have won that game necessarily had he been playing on Monday. But yeah, as a player, he's steady enough. But I mean, he's his best days are behind him. And I guess the reason in looking at Field at centre back, he has played it before for West Brom. Maybe you just want to have a look at him, see if that's an option sort of going forward. But I agree with Kevin messing up the combination of Field and Johansson in the middle of midfield. I think disrupted them. I mean, Forest midfield is very good. That Garner's a very good player, and really, that was probably Johansson's poorest game since he's been at QPR on Monday. And whether or not Field not being alongside him was a factor in that, I don't know. But yeah, I guess hindsight's 20/20, isn't it? Don Ball has played it before for Rotherham and others. Maybe he should have played there. But yeah, I think it was just one of those days, the Forest game, wasn't it? But move on to the next one.
Just interesting with Cameron, I think, because I think the couple of games that they have lost recently, he's not played in either. So there is some weird, like you say, correlation between him going out and the team not doing well. And like you say, it's probably other factors come into play as well, the kind of team performance. But I suppose he does kind of bring that experience and a bit of leadership. And like you said, since he's moved into that back three, I think he's been a lot better there than he was in the sort of central midfield role that he had been playing previously. Just obviously talk about something a bit more positive, the 3-0 win over Coventry, Ben. Ilias Chair really kind of caught the eye on that one. I mean, watching the highlights, he probably should and maybe could have had a hat-trick in that game. He had a lot of good chances. He's sort of really come into his own this season. I feel like he's really showing, with Eze going, with Brightside, Samuel moving on, the pressure's really been heaped on him in that kind of attacking midfield role, and he seems to have dealt with it really well. I mean, you must be really impressed by what you've kind of seen from him this season.
Yeah, I think, as you say, Dan, that the pressure was on Chair, if you like, to step up after Eze and then, say, Samuel have gone. He's become the main creative outlet, I suppose, for the team. And I suppose the thing you look at is he's kind of so far perhaps not really backed that up in terms of number of goals he's scored, because you're looking for that sort of player to get probably double figures, I think. And he's I think now moved up to, is it 7 for the season?
8 for the season now.
8 in fact. Okay.
Like could get there, I think.
Okay, and as you said, he could probably have had a hat-trick. I mean, it was funny, really. The Coventry keeper, I think, you'd probably say was man of the match, because but for him, Rangers could easily have.
He did make the howler, obviously, for the.
And yet, as you say, he's then letting a soft one at the near post. But you want to see Chair do that, basically dance around teams, and I think it's quite interesting to see how he seems to thrive more, I feel, when he and Willock are not starting together, and I suppose that's inevitable, perhaps because they perhaps to an extent get in each other's way a little bit, filling that same role. But I think it's good to see Chair playing in that position he's been in as well, in behind the strikers, because I think that's where he's best suited. And it'll be interesting to see really how long Rangers can hold on to him, of course. But I suppose we shouldn't be too negative about that. But just coming back to Geoff Cameron, I'd just like to add, I personally feel he is quite a miss for the team. I think I'd agree that overall he's more likely to operate as a defender rather than a midfielder now. But I would say there was a case in point, I think, where he came on. I think it was against Wycombe recently, when Rangers were protecting a 1-0 lead. And I thought he did a fantastic job in front of the defence there, just doing that shielding job, just spraying the passes around, relieving the pressure. And I certainly think he's by no means a spent force. If I was at QPR, I would be looking to to keep him on for another season. I think his contract is up, so I'd be looking to keep him on another year. And I think you've also got to keep in mind that he can play those two positions. So you're going to get injuries, and if you've got a hole in defence or midfield, then he's an option to fill that.
Absolutely, I think he does seem to shore things up, and like I say, I think they will miss him if he does go next season. It'll be interesting to see what decision is made by the club. And yeah, just on Chair as well. I mean, like you said, he's 8 goals. I mean, that's sort of surpassed last season's total, but he's only got a couple of assists. And I suppose with those, you are dependent on obviously 2 people. The Chair providing the service and the strikers putting it away, which they haven't always done this season. But I think that's probably an area where he's maybe looking to improve as well. I remember he came out for the sort of post-game press conference earlier in the year, and he was talking about his need to improve his stats, and that was like a big focus for him. So I think there's definitely still a way to go in that area. But yeah, I think next season's a huge one for him if he carries on improving and he does get, to a high level. I think QPR might be in for another, financial reward. I think for him, they've brought him through really well. And it's obviously we've seen Eze go. We've seen obviously Bright was slightly different circumstances with the contract expiring and so on. But certainly he could be a player that maybe could move on to a high level as well. But maybe with QPR, who knows? We'll have to see how next season goes. So yeah, back to the strikers. Like I said, we want to talk about. Come to you first, Kev. Obviously, Charlie Austin coming in has been a massive boost for the club. I think he scored 5 goals. He's not scored for about 7 games actually, which I didn't realise until I looked earlier. The games come so fast, you kind of forget how long it's been, and he hasn't scored for a little while, so that will be a concern. But nonetheless, he has made a huge difference. But when you look at the other 3, so we've got obviously Lyndon Dykes, who his struggles have been well discussed on by us before. He's picked up a little bit recently. Got Macaulay Bonne as well, who's really struggled this season. I don't think he's played in the last 3 games. I think he's been left on the bench, and he only scored 3 goals this season. And then you've got young Charlie Killman, who perhaps Mark Warburton doesn't feel like he's quite ready for a big role in the team yet. He's sort of made, I think, 10 appearances coming off the bench. But I mean, when you look at those 3, who do you think next season, if we park Charlie Austin for a minute, we don't know if he's going to be there or not. Who do you look at out of those 3 that you think could take the responsibility next season? If any of them, who would you most want to trust in that position?
Well, I think the pecking order, take Charlie Austin out, like you said. I mean, it looks like the manager prefers Lyndon Dykes. Now, at the moment, he's playing Killman he brings Killman on ahead of Macaulay Bonne. And Macaulay Bonne has been, like you said, he's been on the bench and hasn't come on for the last, 3 games?
3 games, yeah. Just left on the bench.
Killman has to come on. I mean, it's a difficult one because Charlie Austin gives you that experience and that know-how and a bit of belief. And with the crowds back next season, he'll give the crowd, a big lift when they see his name on the team. If they see his name on the team sheet. Lyndon Dykes in the last month has improved. I mean, 6 weeks ago, I was saying, got to take him out. He looks like his confidence is shot. But in the last month, he scored 2 goals. Looks a lot better, played for Scotland, done all right. Macaulay Bonne just, I don't know, it looks like the manager doesn't fancy him because he never plays. And the £2 million signing and never plays, they're going to have to look for him to move on or maybe offload him because, he looks like he's now Charlie Killman, 18, 19 is in front of him. Don't know too much about Charlie Killman. He looks quite bright when he comes on. It looks like he's got good touch. I think he's more of a box player and a finisher. I don't think he's going to be where Lyndon Dykes can run the channels. I don't think if Charlie Austin does play, I couldn't see Killman and Charlie Austin playing because they're very similar, both box players where Lyndon Dykes will chase and run in behind. Macaulay Bonne will run in behind because he's got that athleticism and will try and win headers, where Charlie Austin is a box player and Charlie Killman's a box player. So, it's interesting to see what's going to happen. But, at the moment, it's Lyndon Dykes, Charlie Killman and Macaulay Bonne. And Macaulay Bonne's got it all to do till the end of the season to get back in the team and, show maybe in training because he hasn't been given the opportunity in the matches, which suggests he's not doing it in training.
Is there any way?
I can only think why he's and Killman must be doing better than him in training because what else would it be?
Yeah, do you think there's any way back for Bon at all? Like, I mean, you said he's obviously not been given too much of an opportunity. We have seen more of him, obviously, than Killman this year. You know, he started some games. He's come off the bench for a decent spell in some games. He looks like he's got a goal in him. Like, I remember him coming on and scoring. Is it the winner? I can't remember who it was against now, but he came on and scored that header earlier in the season.
That was a derby.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
but he also came on and got last minute equaliser at Sheffield Wednesday. He's got quite a few late goals actually when he's come on. And
when he does come on, he actually does find chances. As whether I think his finishing has let him down, but I don't. Look. You sign a player for $2 million, and you sign another lad, a younger lad. How much was Charlie Killman? 100 grand? I don't know. And
not
he's
very
in front.
much, yeah.
So something behind the scenes, something's not right. So, and as you said, is there a chance for him to get back in? Yeah, of course there is. Injuries, whatever. He comes in, scores a few goals, takes his chance. You're back flavour of the month. It can turn very quickly, football.
So would you, at the moment, you'd back Dykes to be the one of those three to come in next season and take the responsibility if you had to choose from those three at the moment?
Well, yeah, I do think so, because the manager, obviously, even when he was having a real bad time, and I thought, take him out, put Macaulay Bon in, he didn't. He kept with him, so it looks like the manager likes him.
I still think, you know, we're talking about these three. I think if they don't sign Charlie Austin, they have got to bring someone else in. I just can't see it. We had Dykes and Bon as the two rotation, didn't we, strikers for the first half of the season, and look where they were come Christmas time. You know, before January, they were right down the bottom of the table, and Charlie Austin came in and made a huge difference. I mean, with that in mind, then regardless of, you know, they might not bring someone in. What we've spoke about him needing to be in between the goalposts and getting those positions, Kev, but what does Dykes need to do more if he's really going to be a success at QPR and he's going to take the responsibility that Charlie Austin's had since he's come in this season? What do you look at him to do?
I mean, his general play has been pretty good. And he was off form there for a while because it looked like I said, he needed to be taken out. But I think he's got to improve his finishing, because he's had chances and good chances at vital times, and he hasn't taken them. And if you can just concentrate on his finishing and work harder on his finishing in training, and just be more mentally prepared for when the chance comes, then he'll be all right and he will start. But, you know, Garden, Macaulay, Bon and Killman, the best way for them to improve is by playing matches. And unfortunately, especially Killman's a young lad, he really, I think, if he ain't going to play at QPR for a bit, should be going on loan to a League One club in 6 months. And the best thing for any footballer is learning on the job. Learn on the job, playing matches, game experience is the best thing for any footballer, especially a young footballer. You need to get into that environment and play regular and get that rhythm. Instead of, you know, coming off the bench for 10, 15 minutes here or there, it's not the same as match day, week in, Saturday, Tuesday. You get into that rhythm, you get the match fitness as well. You feel sharp, have confidence. And I think a spell on loan for Charlie Killman would do him the world of good.
And Warburton's pretty keen on that as well, isn't he? Like, he's come out and said a lot that he wants these young players to go out on loan. He said it in January. He might have even said it about Killman, I think. He definitely said it about Batash in midfield, that he does want these guys to go out on loan and learn next to sort of experienced veteran players that have been playing at the lower level for a while, just to kind of get that experience. You mentioned that about Dykes with the finishing, and that's where he needs to improve. Like, it might be a silly question, but what does that ultimately come down to? Like, is it a composure, confidence thing, or is it like, when you watch him, do you see it as more of like a technical issue with the way he's approaching the chances? Like, what do you think he needs to address?
I think a bit of both. Technique needs to improve, but also confidence. It looked like with those chances that has come to him, his confidence is very low, and that's what I mean when I said, you know, that goal for him at Reading was like a perfect goal to get off the mark again and get going, because he made a good run, and once it came, you just sort of slide it in. It's not the run was the impressive thing. The actual touch and finish, you know, I think we could all do that. I'm looking around here now. You've done it. You'd have
I don't know.
But you know what I mean? So it's a technical and a confidence thing. I think confidence and just making the runs all the time, keep making the runs, never give up. Just don't get downhearted. And it's very tough because you keep making runs and the ball don't come in. You're like, the ball's not coming in. And the time you don't make the run, the ball does come in and you're like, I should have made the run.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll bring you in as well then, guys. I mean, regarding that question about the strikers, coming to you first, Ben, what would you be most comfortable with Dykes taking the responsibility, putting Charlie Austin aside for next season? Do you think he can take that on? Would he be your first choice, or perhaps do you want to see more from Macaulay Bonne maybe?
Well, I just think it's interesting, and I think Kevin's probably hit the nail on the head there, talking about something's not right in training, because it does seem to me very odd that Bonne has never really been given a run in the side, which certainly does suggest that he's, for whatever reason, he's not trusted. And you contrast that, of course, with the faith that the manager's shown in Dykes, who stayed in the team for a very long time when he wasn't finding the net and wasn't playing very well. So yeah, I think Dykes is clearly the guy who's in line to take on that responsibility, and it may be that he'll be ready for it, because we've spoken before. We've said, you know, what the level, with no disrespect to the Scottish Championship, the level he was playing at, it's a big gap to what he's come to now, and maybe that just takes time. And I think, as we said, two goals in 3 games for Dykes now. That should be a good base for him. It should be a base to go on and knock in a few more for the rest of the season. And you know, if he can finish off with a bit of a run, then yeah, who knows? He can take that into next season potentially. But you do feel probably that the plans for the strikers are going to hinge around whether they are able to hang on to Charlie Austin or not, because he obviously has been the main man since he came back in on loan. But as you said, we're taking him out of the equation for the moment. So yeah, I think at the moment it has to be Dykes is the one you kind of revolve things around. And you know, I've seen encouraging signs from Dykes the last few games. Not just the fact that he scored goals. I think he's getting in better positions. He seems to be just, I suppose, linking with his teammates a bit better. I know he actually, I think some critical of him for Forest's second goal at Nottingham Forest the other day, and for me the blame for that one was squarely at the feet of Stefan Johansson. I thought it was an awful pass from Johansson, and I don't think there was much Dykes could have done about it to win the ball personally. So yeah, I think we've got to show some faith in him, and yeah, it might well be he's the one to lead the line next season.
Do you agree with that, Ian? Do you agree with Ben? Do you think Dykes is the one to?
I've been really lucky. I've one of the few people that's been allowed to watch QPR games, and
T-shirt. I saw Lyndon Dykes score or whatever. You're one of the only people to do so, I think.
Killman is very good, and the reason he's above Macaulay Bonne is because he's a better player than him, and he will be a better player than Lyndon Dykes. It's a very small sample size, and he hasn't scored yet. But confidence-wise, I'm nowhere near as qualified as Kevin to judge strikers. But I look at a striker, how his first touch is. His first touch is really good. And he came on in his debut, I think, against Bristol City, and his first touch was to bring the ball, a high ball down, killed it with his chest. First touch, looked up and put Bonne through, and Bonne missed. And that was his first touch in the Championship. On his debut for Southend, he's lobbed the keeper from the halfway line. He's playing in the under-23 team, and he's scoring. He's dominating games. He's scoring goals. He was the best player on the park against Watford, I was told a few weeks ago. And he's obviously doing something in training to be above Bonne. Dykes, yeah, he's okay. He scored from a yard, and he scored a good header at the weekend, but his hold-up play still isn't good enough. He's still got a lot to learn, I think. And, it could all change. You could have a good Euros, score 3 goals in the Euros for Scotland, and someone could come in and offer big money for him. It could happen. But Killman, he's not a big guy. He's got, I'm going back a while here now, but he's almost body shape. He's very similar to Gary Bannister's. Strong up top, he's probably about 5'8", 5'9", but he's a really good player. He's going to be. I think they might have found one there. I'm putting a lot of pressure on him now.
I don't think Ian, anyone will complain if he turns out like Gary Bannister.
But there's a reason he wasn't. Warburton didn't want to send him out on loan. He wanted him to stay at QPR. And I think what would be good now if maybe he was given a chance to play alongside Charlie Austin for the last few games. Let him learn alongside, a guy that scored, over 100 goals, in his career. See how he gets on. I'd like to see him get a run. We've seen a lot of Dykes. We've seen a bit. We haven't seen that much of Bon, I guess. But I'd really like to see Killman perhaps, get a run of games in the last sort of 6-8 matches.
He's looked really bright, hasn't he? I mean, I think if he's not, like Kev said, if he's not going to go out on loan, I think he's got to play regularly for QPR next season, because that's going to be big for his development. I know he's still only young, but like I said, he's looked really bright when he's come on, so it'd be good to see him get a run in the team.
Is he, just a quick one, is Ian, because you've seen, I haven't really, so it's difficult judging all the time on the TV because you only see where the camera goes, but has he got the mobility to play the last few games with Charlie Austin together, or will he need maybe a Willocups up front with him, or a Dykes who can, got mobility? Are they very similar players, or are they completely different?
Yeah, he's fairly mobile on that, as I say, because he literally comes on for like 5-10 minutes, so the sample size is really small. So I'd need to see him more over. But I mean, the small bits I have seen of him, he looks sharp. He just looks like his movement. He gets involved in the game very quickly. He's got good feet. I'd just like to see more of him. I think he came on for half an hour against Fulham, and I think he missed a really good chance. He should have scored, but he was lively. He looked, and he's also got 50 League Two games under his belt, so he's not a complete novice either. He's played
That's
lower league,
I think, because becoming so long, like League Two is tough. Like for a lad that young, coming up against some of the defenders he'd come up against, these 30-plus-year-olds, experienced guys that are going to be kicking him about, like that he's already got an edge over people at his age, I think. Yeah. All right, we'll move on to predictions then. Sheffield Wednesday, a bit of obviously that massive 5-0 win over Cardiff last time out, which is really odd, but they've been struggling big time before that, really, and they look like they're going to go down to League One. Kev, we'll start with you. What do you think with this one?
Yeah, I mean, they will be, after that result, will be flying high with confidence. So I'm actually going to say I'm still going to go 2-1 QPR.
Ben, 2-1 QPR?
No, I'm going to disagree, I'm afraid. Finally. It had to happen in the end, but I'm going to flip that scoreline on its head. I think Sheffield Wednesday will win 2-1. Wow. As we said, no, we've talked about. I'm talked about this
off the call.
So I'll just explain my thinking. I think we spoke last time about how you don't want to be playing the teams that are absolutely desperate for points at this stage of the season. And I just look at that, and Sheffield Wednesday are desperate for points. And they've, as you said, Dan, they've had a big one, thumping Cardiff the other day. And I'm afraid if you put yourself in Sheffield Wednesday's shoes, they'll look at playing a mid-table side as exactly the sort of fixture they want at this stage. So I hope I'm wrong, but I'm saying 2-1 Sheffield Wednesday.
Ian?
If QPR play they did against Coventry, they'll beat them comfortably. If they play like they did against Forest, they'll get a draw.
Which one do you think it'll be?
I'm gonna go 2-0 QPR.
Yeah, that was actually my prediction as well. Like,
Sheffield Wednesday aren't very good. They're not very good, and neither are Cardiff. So
yeah, I mean Cardiff have been doing well, but before recently, but yeah, I think I still fancy QPR, even though Sheffield Wednesday are coming off the back of that big win. I still think they've got enough to beat them. Definitely. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you again soon.